Welcome into the 102nd episode of the Sabremetrix podcast. My name is Bill. Alongside me, as always, is Walt. Walt, how you doing tonight?
Oh, doing pretty good. It's crazy to think that this could be our last podcast episode of the Sabres drought.
There's a lot of reminiscing about the drought going on right now. We will keep this a quick episode and only talk about the present and what's going on in the near future. Walt is out on vacation, but the Sabres certainly aren't. They're in the thick of things, coming off a not so hot week, but ended up finishing with an overtime win, or excuse me, I guess a shootout win. But the big one got 100 points. And tomorrow, I guess technically today, because this is coming out Thursday morning, the chance to win and you're in and officially snap the drought. Walt, reflect on this season and how crazy it's been to get here and just kind of your feeling going into the game against Ottawa.
It almost feels a little unbelievable this season because it kind of feels like, the tale of two seasons. We had beginning of the season where it just felt like any other Sabres season throughout this drought. And then it turns into just hockey. We've never seen these guys play before. And I just watched Zach Benson's sit down interview with Matt Bove today. And it's crazy to think that, like, when this team turned around, like, there weren't really a lot of new additions to the locker room, like, for this team compared to a few years prior. Like, it's a lot of the same faces that are part of this turnaround. Like, there's been a few pieces added, like Doan and Josh Norris. But I mean, for the most part, like, a lot of the core has been here through the bad, and they're here for the turnaround when they're finally good. So it's hard not to draw comparisons to the 2005 2006 Sabres team, because that was pretty similar, where they had a lot of faces that were there in 03 04. Sure, some new additions, but it was the same group of guys that managed to turn things around and turn into a really good hockey team. So I think my thoughts is that I hope this team could kind of unlock that same magic over these next few seasons, and this season especially. I think, being able to come back in that Seattle game and win that game in a shootout, being able to kind of win a tough game against the Islanders, I think this is like the difference between a 100-plus point team and a team that's, fighting just to make it to the playoffs, just winning those types of games. And I think, they'll have a real test against Ottawa. Ottawa hasn't been winning a lot lately, but they've had decent underlying numbers this season. They're a team who, has played the Sabres pretty well, even though the Sabres have ended up with some wins. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup and a lot on the line for the Sabres too, because they could fully clinch a playoff spot with a regulation win there. Or
The one
anyone
thing
for that matter.
I will push back on a little bit is saying that, like, a lot of these guys have been here for the turnaround. I would say literally every single one except like Logan Stanley and the guys they just brought in, because look at where this team was
Yeah,
end
pretty
of
much.
November, early December. It was super close. It wasn't there yet, but it was close. Like, you need to go on this crazy streak just to get back into it, not only to make the playoffs. Like, they were a couple weeks away from it being pretty much over. And so I don't know. I'm just the excitement doesn't really kind of like compute yet still. I think tomorrow really being able to exhale, if the Sabres can win and saying they officially, no matter what happens, you know, major injury, whatever, they're still making the playoffs. And it's been a long time coming. I say it multiple times to people around me. I've said it multiple times here. Last time I physically lived in Buffalo and the Sabres were in the playoffs, 2001. That hopefully that explains a little bit of my, like, I don't even know what to do here kind of thing. Super impressive, 100 points, blew past where I thought they would be. And I thought they would be a decent team fighting for a playoff spot. I didn't necessarily think they'd make it or not. I put it just below 50% personally. But what, like, What would you say the catalyst really is? Is it the goaltending? Because I'm trying to have this lead into where's the goaltending at now? Because the last time we talked, I was thinking line could be the starter, but they still had some games to play, and now it's looking like UPL. Is it would you say the biggest turnaround this season is the goaltending really just helping them, especially Lyon in the beginning of the season? I think I've forgotten, a lot of other people have forgotten. He really carried the team. It could have been worse to begin with, and he really did carry the team while they were struggling at the beginning of the season. Do you think goaltending is the biggest factor for the team being not only making the playoffs or in the hunt, but like still can clinch a playoff spot? What, April 2nd? Like,
Uh,
do you really like, or is it just the natural progression of Thompson, Dahlin, and getting depth scoring out of Doan and Quinn and Zucker and stuff like that? Because I've been
well,
waffling that too.
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I think it's like a mix of everything. Just
Yeah,
because they got good goaltending 2 years ago, they were still a pretty bad hockey team, even though UPL was giving them some, good goaltending that season. And they've also had times where they scored like crazy with guys like Tage and Tuck and in 22, 23, and they still weren't good enough for a playoff spot. So I think they've had, a bunch of pieces where they've shown the ability to kind of be good in those areas, like goaltending, goal scoring. And I think they've really just been able to tie that all together. They've been more responsible defensively. They know how to win in multiple ways now. It's not
yeah,
just, you know, a 8-7 game. Like sure, they've won a game like that against Tampa, but they can win like the 2-0, 3-2 games. They can win the tight games against teams like the Islanders. And I really think, I mean, this season's really opened my eyes to like the mental side of like
yeah.
the NHL
Mhm.
because I really didn't think that was a factor. And then, they fire someone like Kevin Adams. Just the whole mood around the team felt like it switched, and
Yeah, it
they
really
go on
did.
this crazy run. It's crazy.
I people saying like this is Kevin Adams' team, but it is pretty notable that yes, he maybe got let go a couple of games into the streak because that was when they came back. But it really did feel like a more professional, clean slate almost as well. Those
Yeah.
interlocking relationships and dynamics were just gone out the window. Yarmo comes in and he's very blunt. I think the players either needed that or appreciate that or whatever it was had a super positive effect. And I think we might have talked about it. I don't know if I maybe tweeted about it or whatever. I remember thinking it at least early this season before the streak that started early December, thinking like this team is like, yeah, they're not playing well, but they're not this bad. And so like it did kind of feel like, okay, they could be playing better. And I'm not saying I anticipated the streak they went on, but I do remember, and I wonder if other people out there listening as well remember thinking this team isn't this bad. Yeah, they haven't been playing great for sure, but like I remember that. Am I off base there, or is that something you remember about early this season?
Yeah, I remember that. I just think when they went on that West Coast trip, when they kind of turned things around against like the Oilers Flames, like whatever that trip was.
Mm,
I think the general consensus was this team's like not as bad as they are in the standings, but also at the same time they're losing so much that eventually this is going to snowball and just be
yeah,
another one of those Sabres seasons. And it felt too like they had no real plan for both the present and the future. So I think, it really needed like a mindset change to be like, oh yeah, there's kind of, life beyond this season. Because if this season would have went south and they would have kept the GM and everything the same, you'd really have to start looking at whether or not guys like Tage or Darlene or even someone like Doan, would he even have signed a contract, even if he did, how long would he want to be here for? Just like stuff like that, where it's like,
mhm,
if things turn south this season, I think we kind of forget now with how good they are. Like we could have been looking at a completely different Sabres team next season. So
yeah,
it was really like right at the buzzer, this team was able to turn things around because, yeah, like you said, they weren't playing terrible hockey. It's just the vibes were terrible. The losses are
Yeah.
starting to pile up, and eventually that turns into bad hockey with this team and a mediocre season like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, like, what was on the ice, we were like, "Okay, it's not terrible." Again, it's not great by any means, but it's not, like, this bad. It shouldn't reflect this bad, but the like you said, the I don't wanna say culture, but like you say, like, the vibes around the team or the mood or the air around the team
Yeah.
was just gross. You had some reporters mention, like, they're getting laughed at by other teams and stuff like that, and the old Buffalo thing, and credit to them. They were the ones that went out there and won all those games, and I did try to start this as a UPL conversation. We did get a little sidetracked, totally fine, but I do wanna bring it back to UPL. Where do you stand on who starts in the playoffs now? It seems like UPL's found a little bit of a starter's net, and Lindy Ruff is gonna ride that a little bit. I'm sure Lyon gets some games as well, for sure. He's gonna get rotated in theirs, but seems like that's probably what they prefer is if UPL goes out there and grabs it, but they aren't just gonna give it to them either. But to be fair, most nights UPL has done a decent job of grabbing it, even as a UPL doubter myself.
Yeah, I do think I mean they moved out of the goalie rotation, so I think UPL, if he keeps playing like this, is probably their number one. Like probably not a number one where he's playing, 75% of the games.
Mhm.
Like we'll see what they do in the playoffs. I'm still not sold that he should be the only goalie playing games in the playoffs. I still think they could fit in a line starter too in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because Alex Lyon was just on like the What Chaos podcast, and he said like he hopes UPL plays all 16 games in the playoffs and wins the Stanley Cup. That'd be like the best day in his life. Like I'm paraphrasing him here, but that's
Yeah.
essentially what he said. So if you want to watch that interview and check that out, he's a pretty funny character. But
He's a goof.
yeah, I honestly don't think you could have a better 1-2 tandem right now because Lyon's a guy who I don't really think he cares that much if he has to watch the playoff games from a bench. I don't think he's going to be having his agent tweet out a picture with like a sword through him like right before a big playoff game. So if they
Yeah.
do have to go heavy with UPL in the playoffs, I think they have a good opportunity to, but at the same time, I wouldn't mind mixing in a Lions start every once in a while in the playoffs.
I will say if you get the, like, best version of UPL, he's a somewhat streaky goaltender, but if you're on one of those good streaks, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We've seen it. When he's really, really on, he looks good.
Yeah.
We've also seen it when it's, not confident or hasn't played much or whatever it may be, also struggles as well. So I think Lyon being more of a career backup, is a little bit more used to it. Seems like I did see a little bit of his interview, but I didn't get very far. It's been fun at work, let's just say that. But yeah, I did hear a little bit of it, and he does kind of have a sounds like he's just kind of gone through to like a new phase of his career and kind of like a different
Yeah.
outlook on things where he might have been a little bit more competitive about that. And I'm not saying he isn't by any means, but just from what I sense, he's a little bit more like you said, if he's going to play all the games, that's fine. I'll be super happy for him, and I'm right here. And I think also having him back up is a good thing because he knows how to stay ready in that situation. Because I think in the playoffs, there could be at some point, game 2 or 3, the legs get a little heavy, and the team. I'm not necessarily saying UPL, but the team kind of fails UPL a little bit. And they're like, look, I'm pulling him not because of what UPL is doing, but I'm just trying to spark the guys. Because that could possibly happen. That's just one scenario I'm just kind of throwing out there, and obviously hope that doesn't happen. But Lyon
Yeah,
feels like a guy that could be ready for that.
I do think they're close enough where it's like if UPL has a bad game in the playoffs and they lose like 6-2, I think they're close enough where Lion gets that next start. Like I don't think there's
Yeah,
such a
that's
huge
fair.
gap between the two where you're gonna let UPL play through his struggles. I think UPL's hot. I think they'll ride with him throughout the playoffs. But yeah, I think if UPL struggles in a game, I think they probably look to Lion the following game.
I think for me, it would depend on how that game became 6-2. Was it a UPL got left out to dry 6-2 and it was 2 empty net goals? So really it was like 4-2 or something? I'm just kinda throwing that out there. Or is it like, dude, you, like, really needed it we needed a save on at least a couple of those. Then, yeah, I 100%. So it also obviously context matters, but I understand what you're saying. Gonna keep it moving, because, again, Walt is on vacation. He's actually going clubbing later. Kidding, I don't know why I threw that out there. Sorry, bud. Um,
No, that's
uh
actually my plan. You gave it away.
Alright, well, he's gonna be going out in that, Sabres hat too, so we'll see if he,
Yeah.
runs into any fellow Sabres people out there. I have a couple different topics. I guess I'll just go with the ones I wrote down in order. Sam Carrick is now
Yeah, that was
injured.
unfortunate.
That was super unfortunate. That's, like, the worst part about hockey for sure, and he seems like he's gonna be out for a while. I don't wanna call Lee's hit dirty, I wanna call it greasy, 'cause I've been trying to think of this in a way where, like, greasy is dirty is like he was full speed, really trying to pummel Norris. But I think with Elise, I call it greasy just because he wasn't going full speed by any means, but all he saw was numbers. It's a greasy hit. And I personally believe that deserved something. Probably maybe not a suspension, maybe a fine saying like, "Hey man, like we can't do that. We're docking you." I think call the 5 and see where you wanna go from there, but call the 5. All he saw was numbers. Wanted to get your reaction on that play, that hit, and then kinda Norris the rest of the game and standing up for himself or getting into it, I guess. I don't know what people wanna call it, but getting into it. And then also the loss of Sam Carrick and what he's actually meant to this team because that was the best acquisition they've made up until then.
Yeah, I mean, first with that Lee hit, I think the refs kind of assumed like he just got injured because of the stanchion and the fact that it was kind of at the edge of the bench. So I think they kind of ignored the fact that it was somewhat of a dirty hit to begin with, hitting him in the numbers. I think they kind of, blew it off a little bit, like, oh, it was just unfortunate where the hit happened. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. They took a look at it for 5 minutes. I don't really know what they're looking for, but they figured out it wasn't worth
I
five
that
minutes.
I
So
mean, that makes sense either. I don't
yeah,
if you're gonna look at it for that long, I don't know, I guess, call me a homer, I guess, but I was expecting something to come out of that, but for them to be like, "Alright, nothing, see ya," and you're just like, "You waste all that time," and now I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
yeah. I just think too, it's like the NHL is not great at enforcing penalties like after stuff happens, just to prevent like future events from happening in the game. Like
Yeah,
I know he probably may have not have been kicked out of that game, but at the same time, you could avoid some stuff that happens later. I think the Carrick fight was just unfortunate. Uh, I don't know. It's just like you want to see guys like Carrick fight in those situations, but at the same time, Carrick's not like a pure like Andrew Peters type. So you kind of need him to play like actual hockey too.
yeah,
So to like risk him getting injured, and there's so many ways you get injured fighting the NHL, even with your hands. Like you can't really take off your helmet anymore unless it falls off. So you're throwing haymakers at a
yeah,
guy's visor and helmet. There's so many ways you could, do long term damage to your hand, and then you before you know it, you're out 2-3 weeks and you miss some playoff games. So yeah, it's unfortunate. Uh, I really hope he's able to come back. But yeah, it was nice seeing the team throughout the night, like really standing up, like Norris too, standing up, and then Benson kind of gets involved, and then Big
mhm.
Logan Stanley comes over and chirps. I think it was like Scott Mayfield all the way into the penalty box.
Yep,
It's just fun stuff to see with this team. Everyone has each other's backs, and I think that's a difference. Like that's a mental aspect of
mhm,
hockey that we talked about earlier. Something that this team never had. And I think it's more than just, outchancing your opponents. I think
mhm,
if you could get there mentally, it could help you outchance your opponents because they've always had the talent on this team. It's really just been about putting it all together. And I think, we saw a great example in the Islanders game just with, guys not allowing nonsense to happen.
They didn't go full crazy mode either because it was still a close game and you don't want
Yeah.
to start taking all these crazy penalties. And then there is a part of it where it's like, hey, refs, if you do a better job with the first thing, then maybe Norris doesn't get the double minor that the
Yeah,
Islanders
that
end
was
up.
crazy. I forgot
Yeah,
about
so
that.
yeah, like because now he wants to get even. Where if you
Yeah.
give Anders Lee a 5 minute, because again, the only thing he saw was numbers. That's the only like there was at no point you watch the clip, at no point was Norris facing him. Not once. There's no deniability there. You just don't do it. So I don't know. Those kind of hits to really irk me. Personally, have been hurt on them, and it's just like you didn't. It's the ones that you definitely didn't have to do. If someone turns, it's just an unfortunate play. It does happen. Guys need to be careful. But that there, all you saw was numbers for Norris. So it's just I just think a
That's
greasy hit again. It
such a
could be worse. Could have made it worse
such
for
a
sure. I just want
dangerous part of the ice too. I don't know if
yeah.
they factor that in, but it's like it's right near the stanchion and where the
I'm like,
glass kind of curves into the bench.
and he knows like Anders Lee is a professional hockey player. He spent more time on ice than we have, breathing air kind of thing. Like he knows. He knows. So it's just unfortunate. I was glad Norris wasn't hurt on it just because of all the injury stuff he's gone through. But yeah, the Sam
Yeah.
Carrick thing did not look good. And that's, the people that detract against fighting, especially the more like what do you want to call them? Like staged fights or whatever. That's detractors will point right to that. Hey, he's trying to stand up for his teammate and now he's hurt and all that. And it's just part of the game, unfortunately. It really sucks, man. Because yeah, Sam Carrick has been a really good addition to the Sabres. That was the Islanders game there. Zach Metz is back. Anything on our PDO King, or I just threw it down? That's all I got. I didn't expect him to be
Yeah.
gone for that
He's
long. I didn't know how long it was going to be, but anything about him?
really just like the whole story within the fact that there is a "We Want Metso" chant during one of the games last week. It's just so crazy seeing, kind of like the lore around this guy just with this crazy PDO run, and it's still continuing to go. And I think this crazy PDO run has allowed him to continue to, get into games for the Sabres, and he's genuinely been playing better hockey for the Sabres as of late. So it makes things really interesting as we, approach the end of the season, get in the playoffs. Kesslering hasn't been able to see the ice at all. Timmins hasn't looked too great in his games. Luke Shen, you just absolutely can't play in
Breaking
any
case of
meaningful game.
emergency.
So it's like, is Metsa your game one right-handed defenseman on that bottom pair? I could maybe see it at this point. So it's kind of like crazy to think about. Like, this was a guy that he played like 3 games, 2 games in like how many little days in Rochester. Then they call him up and he plays
Yeah,
against the Islanders. Like, it's pretty
that was wild.
wild
Yeah,
how much they trust this guy over someone like Kesselring who's just like dying to get into a game.
that was my thing. And that was going to be my next question is Mets have played all those games. Then they're like, get in there. What does Michael Kesselring have to do to get into a game?
Yeah.
Is he like kicking up dust behind the scenes? And like, they're just like, all right, buddy, like, we're not going to accept that. Like, no, you're going to sit. Like, that is me making that up, by the way. I don't know anything. I don't know why I even
And
did
there's
these
got to
looks.
be something. I keep
It's something.
seeing people,
What's going
my
on?
replies are like, oh, he's playing through an injury. And then Lindy hasn't mentioned him being injured. Lindy usually mentions when everyone's injured. Like he mentioned that Noah Oslin's injured. That's why he's out. Like he hasn't
Yeah.
really said that about Kesslering. And based on his social media stuff, like I know unfollowing the team, it's kind of something that doesn't matter that much, but it's still something that was there. And he posted that Instagram story too of like his Utah highlights. So it's definitely not a scenario where I think it's a guy that's just injured. I think there's definitely something here where he thinks he should be getting into games.
Yeah, I'm a Kesselring like believer. Again, I will come out and say it
Yeah,
again. I wasn't the biggest fan of the trade when it first went down, and then kind of let the stench of Kevin Adams was the one that made this trade, and you look into it and you're like, "Oh, it's not bad. A couple things need to go right here." Josh Doan went right, but, like, this is not a bad trade. Josh Doan went great, actually, better than expected. Um, Kesselring, I still just believe in too. Just the size, the speed. You saw again, I do kinda get him posting his Utah highlights. He's like, "Hey, look," but we also have some times where he was a little unhinged out there. He was trying to prove himself to the team is what I believe, but it's like, "Hey, man, you gotta really kinda cool it sometimes when you're on the ice and just play hockey." I understand he was trying to either defend guys. One of the games was a Tampa game, of course. Kesselring's a bigger dude. He's gonna get in there too, but I don't know. I'm a believer of his, and so it's just to me, it's a little crazy. It's just like, "Hey, just have Stanley just chill for a game." That's fine. Just try out Kesselring and Metsä, and maybe Kesselring gets a huge run after they finally clinch and whatever, but it's just I don't know, man. It's a little it makes you wonder, right? Like, what's going on here? Like, is he like, I know
yeah.
he's fighting through some injuries, but I would feel like he's probably the healthiest he's been right now. What's going on here? What's going on?
It's got to be
Mm,
something because I think that third pair right hand defenseman shot obviously has competition because there's
yeah.
a lot of bodies. There's four guys competing for that one spot, but Kessler probably has the best pedigree of all four. He has the best underlying numbers of all four. It really makes no sense why he
Timmins
can't get into a game.
Timmins came right back in pretty much. I mean, yeah, he had like a
Yeah.
little bit of some time with some practice or, missed a game or two when he could have technically played, but Timmins went
Shen
right in
too.
there. Shen
Shen, like
went
as
right
soon as
in
the
there.
trade comes, was right in there.
Stanley hasn't come out since. Like, it's okay. You can try to play a game without well, maybe maybe he has come out. That might be apologies. Don't actually have the facts in
I
front of
don't
me.
I don't
Maybe
think he has.
I
I think
thought
Stanley's
there
been
might
in
have been
there.
one game. Maybe not. Maybe I am just thinking of before when the passport stuff or visa stuff
Yeah,
was
because
going
they
on,
just
but
don't have a lot of bottom pair left hand shots. So Stanley's pretty much been
that's true.
locked
Yep.
into that third pair role because he's the other guys he's competing with are all
Yeah.
mainly right-handed shots.
Miss Jacob Bryson. Well, another lefty out there.
He had a rough game last night. I saw like the
Last
hockey
night?
stats cards. Yeah, game
Oh boy.
scores. He was, I think, the lowest player of the night. I didn't watch the game, but I thought it was interesting. Henry Hart is actually like the third highest last night too. I didn't watch the Boston game either, but I guess he had a good game for the Bruins. And Connor Clifton too is also top five, another former Sabres defenseman. So we had a
Oh,
mix of
wow.
great and terrible for former Sabres defensemen last night.
Is this the old adage of like, why does everyone get so much better when they leave Buffalo? And it's just like Henry
Yeah,
Okiharu and Connor Clifton. And you're like, oh, okay,
yeah, I know.
it's
They'll
not that
see
big of
like
a
a
deal. It's fine.
highlight of like one Yoki Haru goal, and they're like, "Oh, these guys are always incredible." And they leave the
Yeah.
Sabres.
Oh, brother. Okay. So again, like I know we kind of glossed over it, but like again, 100 points. That's like triple digits. That's so freaking cool, man. Like the Buffalo Sabres have 100 points. Well, and are
I
definitely
know
making
it's
the playoffs. It's
unbelievable.
just a matter of when. I mean, like, I'm super excited about that. It's winning in again. We were recording Wednesday evening, later Wednesday evening, before Walt goes out clubbing. And so tonight, when you're listening to this, they could clinch, or it could be over the weekend. They travel to Washington Saturday, and then the game I wanted to talk about Monday evening, Dingus Day in Buffalo. Tampa is back for a rematch. Walt, what do you think is made of that game? Because I actually don't think it's going to be fireworks like it was that last game. I don't think anything's going to top that last game, but there could be something. But what do you think going into that game again? And you might be able to tell this a little bit easier, maybe like Sunday when the current standings are out there. But what do you think right now as you're sitting here Monday? You think it's going to be a yard sale? You think it's going to be a Tampa wins, Buffalo wins big, and there's not much going on. What do you think? What are you looking for on Dingus Day in Buffalo?
Yeah, like I really don't think you could even script the type of game we had the last time those two teams met. Like I think that's kind of the thing. Did I freeze?
Yeah, you're freezing a little bit, but I think we still got audio here, so we're just gonna try to power through on that.
Okay. So yeah, I'll power through me freezing on the screen.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really think you can't really script that type of game that happened the last time with it being 8-7. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think just hockey wise, it's such a big result because that game's going to matter a lot for the division. It's going to matter a lot just in terms of controlling their own destiny. So yeah, I'd love to see a kind of a replica of the 8-7 game, but I think that game is impossible to recreate. So I'm just hoping for a Sabres win.
that's fair. Sabres, as of right now, this is before the Ottawa game, 71 games played, 95 points. Tampa Bay, 70 games played, 93 points. And then in third is Montreal, 70 games played, 88 points. So let's just assume that Tampa, like, I don't know, Sabres lose and Tampa wins their next game. Then they're tied on points still. Sabres, or I guess Tampa would have a game in hand. Montreal, they're pulling away a little bit, but Montreal is doing relatively well, 6-3-1 in their last 10 games, winners of their last two. I want to do maybe, do you think it's most likely that they win the division and they're playing a wild card team, or do you think they end up second and playing Montreal? I wonder what you think there.
I think it all comes down to what happens Monday. So I could see, I could really see either way. I do think Boston seems to be separating from the pack in that wild card one spot, and I don't think Sabres have enough juice to catch up to Carolina down the stretch. I guess we'll see. So I think the difference between having to play Montreal and Boston in the first round, I think, is massive. Like I think there's a huge gap between those two teams.
Agreed. And that was actually my next question, is just kind of depending on how well this actually goes. Do you think the Sabres win the East and get to play that second wild card team instead of, wild card one, which could be, who knows who it could be, especially a team from the East, like, of course it's a team from the East, a team from the Atlantic. It's just sneaking in a team from the West into the Eastern
Yeah.
playoffs. But like that does terrify me. Yeah, like I would like to see the Bruins, but I don't know. Would you rather see, I don't know, maybe the Blue Jackets? Hold on, let me pull up I had like the old standings up for some reason when the Sabres still had 95 points, and I was like, what is going on here? It took me a second to figure that out. So apologies on that, folks. But
I think the Blue Jackets just scare me a little bit, just
yeah,
because I'm thinking about.
it's the cannon.
I mean, yeah, maybe just PTSD from that 5-2 loss or whatever it was, where they just looked
Oh, at
bad,
the
and that
end
was like,
when
yeah,
they
that was
ended the
during the
streak.
Sabres' good era.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was just an ugly game. Yeah, it was gross.
and
One
they
to
just
forget.
they have some size to that team. They're kind of a pain to play against. Guys like Marchenko and Brokoff and Zach Werenski's probably,
He's
I think, a
nasty.
top three
He's so
defenseman
good.
in the NHL right now pretty easily. So I don't know. And their goaltending too. Their goaltending's been better the second half of the season. So they're kind of a team where I'm just like, give me Boston. I think they can handle Boston, even though they don't have the best record against them this year. I think they lost one in OT, lost two in OT, lost one in regulation, won one in regulation. So that's 1-3-0 in a playoff series. But I'd almost rather have that, because if Sabres were 4-0 against the Bruins, I wouldn't be confident they could win a series with them in the playoffs. I think I'm just kind of like superstitious like that. I feel like you got to lose a little bit to a team in the regular season to
Mhm.
save some wins for the
Yeah.
playoffs. It's just so tough to beat a team like 8 times in 8 games.
Hold something in the chamber. Yeah. I, kind of kind of hold yourself back. It's like the football thing where they're like the hold in place because when they see him later in the season or they see him in the playoffs. So okay, I'm going to go over the actual standings because I know I went over the ones where I was like Sabres have 95 points. Obviously, that's not true. It was the old standings. I do apologize. Anyone listening to that and then cut off the podcast just thinks I'm a moron. I don't disagree. But Sabres 75 games played, 100 points. Tampa 74 games, 98 points. So still, going to be tied game in hand kind of thing if they win their next. Montreal Canadiens, 74 games, 96 points. Boston, 94 points with 75 games played as well, right there. Ottawa, another thing about this Sabres Ottawa game is if you beat Ottawa, that's also helping you there because Ottawa's nipping at the heels. They have 86 points. Columbus is holding the second wild card spot with 88. I don't want to see Ottawa. No thanks, I'm
Yeah,
good.
you are.
Like I would rather it end Boston and Ottawa, and the Sabres don't win the East, but they win the Atlantic, so they see Boston. And like if a team makes the playoffs, they're a good enough team to make the NHL playoffs. I don't really want to see any of them. There's really no cakewalks. There's no easy routes, but like the most favorable matchup you can probably put together is probably Boston. Maybe if somehow Detroit squeaks in just because of all the pressure that's on them and they almost choked it away. As of right now, it looks like they are kind of choking it away. That's maybe a team that you might have a
Yeah,
favorable matchup against. But
it's kind of the thing with this type of playoff race with this many teams. Like whoever gets in is going to be the hottest team.
that's
Like
also true, and
for
you don't want to see them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the other tricky part of these wild card spots is that you could get stuck with a really hot team in the first round.
It's also why I didn't necessarily freak out when the Sabres kind of just stumbled a bit last week, just because it's like if this is gonna happen, I'd rather it happen now for sure. They're still in like a decent
Yeah.
spot to make the playoffs now. Um, I I don't see any reason why you'd want them to, I don't know, win out and then lose their last 3 or something like that going into the playoffs. I'd rather that happen prior to it, essentially. So, also want guys to stay healthy, especially now that, it was a harsh reality. You're like, "Oh, yeah, Carrick's stepping up to, defend the boys. Here we go." And, oh, crap, it got real silent real fast. And I just, you know, injuries are gonna happen. You take a shot off the foot or something, you can't do much about that, but I just hope the guys stay healthy, from here till the end of the season. Walt, it's almost clubbing time for you, you disco maniac. What, not final word, but anything else that we want to talk about maybe that I can think of? Maybe Don Stevens. Shout out Don Stevens. That was awesome. Also, I know he was beating
Cambridge
himself
legend.
up. Yeah, he's definitely a legend. He was beating himself up over calling him like Rochester or like the Amerks. And I was like, dude, first of all, you've done that for like 40 years, and that's just muscle memory. Of course that was going to happen in your just natural flow state when you're trying to call a game. Of course it was going to happen. If anyone's judging you for that, that's on them, not you, Don. And yeah, it's just, I also appreciate what he said. He's basically like, I feel like I might be losing a step and I'm going to step away. And it's just like, yeah, man, like you don't have to enjoy retirement. You deserve it. Come to a couple hockey games, enjoy a couple hot dogs and a beer, and watch the game as a spectator. Everyone would love to see you, kind of thing. So, huge shout out to Don Stevens. Love hearing him on the call. Walt, any kind of memories Rochester wise? Maybe the Frozen Frontier, I believe is what they called it. That was probably a memorable one for me. But anything Don Stevens wise that you wanted to mention?
Rochester wise, I actually just watched like a YouTube video about the Sabres 03-04 season. I completely forgot that they played they played a home game in Rochester that season.
Oh, that'd be sweet. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
that would be
revenue wise, maybe not, but
yeah, I guess
all
yeah,
around.
modern day NHL that probably doesn't happen, but it would be cool to
Yeah.
see like a preseason game there or something at least.
That'd be cool, yeah.
I feel like
Instead
that
of
would be
sending
pretty
them off to, like, I do appreciate those, like, local hockey games that they do for, like, the Craft Hockeyville or
yeah.
whatever, but, like, I don't need them at the municipal rink over in Oshawa to go play the Maple Leafs for a preseason game. Maybe just send one to, like, I don't know, the Erie Otters
Yeah.
arena
Or
or
even like
Rochester.
Fort Erie too. I feel
Fort
like
Erie. There you
the
go.
Sabres get better. We need to tap into that depressed Leafs fan base. We could get so many young kids that would become Leafs fans to become Sabres fans if this team stays good the next few years.
They it doesn't look good over there. That's it's ugly stuff.
They brought up the Sabres too as an example of a of
Yeah.
a young up and coming team in that presser. I thought
Yeah,
that
they're like,
was
"We weren't
pretty
expecting
funny.
the rise of the Sabres," and I was like, "How could you not?" Oh, we all did. No, I'm just kidding, obviously, but, um, yeah, dude. This is not a Maple Leafs. This is actually an anti-Maple Leafs podcast simply because it has to be. I actually don't hold, like, too much ill will towards them just because 'cause it's been such a weird lopsided rivalry in that sense. I have much more hatred for the other teams in
Yeah,
the
I think the
Atlantic.
last time they made it to the playoffs together, I think was it was something crazy. It's like 2001, I think was the last time they both
Doesn't
made
surprise me.
it to the playoffs in the same season.
Oh, man. It's been a minute. It's been a minute for these teams, and Um, I guess being together, it's been a minute for the Sabres being in the playoffs with anyone, but whoever they play, it's going to be an interesting series. I'm just so curious to see who that is, who they match up with, and the discussion of, how do you go about the goaltenders? What kind of lineup do you want to have? At that point, who's injured, who's not, stuff like I'm just really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah,
Again,
I just don't wanna see
apologies.
Montreal. I
I don't want to see
just
Montreal either.
because
That's
I
tough.
think too with I was looking at StubHub for, like, the first few playoff games, just getting a feel of what, like, the resale market will be like. It's like 200 something for upper deck seats. Like, Montreal fans will buy up those seats like
Oh yeah,
crazy
in a
if they could
heartbeat.
get in the building for, like, under $300. So, it's one of the reasons I wanna avoid them, like, even though that's non-hockey. Hockey reason I wanna avoid them too, but yeah, I would just hate to see that matchup in the Sabres' first playoff game in, what, 14, 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously be less Montreal fans there, but they're still gonna I hate to say it, there's a good way for people to make a quick buck and, they'll
Yeah.
they'll upcharge it and sell it. You can't stop people from doing that. So yeah, I don't really want to see Montreal either. That's definitely scares me. I do want to apologize again for having like the wrong point totals and games played. That's just That was bad. That was bad work. That was bad podcasting from yours truly. That one's gonna bug the crap out of me for a while. Walt knows me. I'm gonna be, oh man, once we end recording this, I'm just gonna be freaking out. So I think that's about it for me, folks. I'm sure there's a topic we definitely could have covered, but look, we'll probably be back next week and the week after, and definitely have some playoff previews and just chat about that. It's just the games are coming so fast and heavy. I mean, you deep dive into one thing and the narrative's completely different the next, you know. For example, the goaltending conversation we had. So, Walt, enjoy going out to the bars and all that. We'll have you back next week. Final word from you down where it's warm.
I'd say, let's break the drought. Let's clinch a playoff spot against the Senators.
Now let's do it against the Senators. Doesn't have the same zing when you do it against the Capitals. The one thing I will say is if you can't do it against those two teams, wait until you do it at home, Dingus Day against Tampa. But I'd prefer not getting there. Let's just go ahead and do this against Ottawa. Let's go, Sabres. We will catch you on the next one.